And it's time now for Covering the Course, presented by Baird. We are joined by, I think, one of the most significant figures in the game and who was responsible for the restoration here at Oakmont, many other great golf courses across the country. That is Gil Hanse. So we looked at the front nine, and now let's go out on that backside, Gil. Let's start at number 10.
Terrific. Thanks for giving me a chance to catch my breath.
Yeah. You and the guys who will tee it up tomorrow.
Exactly.
Now how you all feel, you know how we all feel with Randall on the desk.
Here we go, Gil.
All right, number 10. He's starting off the back nine, just really spectacular hole going down the hill. Sorry, having a hard time seeing that. That's coming up number 9, that's why. We're wrapping, I think we're gonna make the turn here. You know, it's one of those things where number 1 is obviously an amazing introduction to the golf course, and if you're teeing off on 10, it's no easier. I mean, it's a similar kind of hole, playing away from the clubhouse, down the hill, and, you know, similar type of green. Maybe not falling away as dramatically, but certainly falling away into the left-hand side. So you've got, it's not a gentle handshake opening on the back nine either. So here we added about 10 yards to the back of the tee. And the bunkering you can see down there on the left-hand side, we actually shifted further back towards the tee, more as an opportunity to defend players who were trying to go down number 10 from 11. So we tried to push those bunkers back into their wheelhouse if they decided to do it. Removed a lot of bunkers, short right, expanded the fairway. We restored the ditch across the fairway. This was an original part of the phone's design. I don't think you'll see many players. I mean, I guess Bryson did it. I saw somebody said on a YouTube video, bounce it across the ditch, but it's pretty far down there. The green itself, one of the most treacherous on the entire golf course. We took a bunker that had been put in front of the right front of the green there in the approach, and we shifted it back over further right as the phones has had it, because that's really the only place you can land a ball and have it feed onto the green. So the phones has originally had that wide open. We restored that shot. I had a good conversation with Adam Scott, and he mentioned that change right off the bat. He said, you know, he's played here 3 times now in U.S. Opens. He said he felt like there was room to actually hit a shot into this green, whereas before there wasn't much room at all. We're going to see a lot of curling putts on this hole. We took away a lot of the bunker buildup on the right side of the green in order to create more hole locations, and also flattened a little bit in that back area. As I mentioned before, during the U.S. Amateur, some of the players were taking more cross-country routes, and we looked at a lot of them. We didn't think many of them were applicable to a U.S. Open with 5-inch rough. Didn't think the players would take that option, but this one really did catch our eye, with players playing up from 11, trying to drive it into 10 fairway, which has got a good angle into 11 green from over there. So we added a back tee, about 25 yards, set that tee down lower. So now to get to 10 fairways, 290-yard carry uphill, generally into the wind. We expanded this fairway over to the ditch on the right. We raised the right side of it about 3 or 4 feet in order to create enough slope to hold the ball in that area. So now you've got a wider landing area to hit it, again, a little bit more conducive to players playing the hole as it was designed. Ditch runs across it. We extended the ditch a little bit further up the left-hand side of the hole, again, as part of a defense for players if they're thinking about going that way. A beautiful green sitting up above these bunkers. Peeled away a lot of the buildup along the edges. New hole locations back left. Kind of a false front to it, even though you're not really playing into the green from the angle where the false front is. But anything that doesn't get about 20 yards into that green is going to come back off the front of it because of the severity of the slope. In number 12, we added a back tee about 20, 25 yards, and in the past they had played a joint tee with number 10 where they kind of moved the tee back on 12 in order to gain some more length. We felt like 12 should have its own tee, and I think the USGA agreed that they wouldn't stretch it all the way back onto the 10th tee, which I think was over 680 yards. Shortened the start of this fairway in order to guard against players playing from 14 into 12. So a lot of the changes we made for the cross-country route were more grass mowing lines as opposed to physically adjusting the hole. Significant slope from left to right on this, so players are going to have to either flirt with those bunkers, try and carry them in order to hold this fairway. As this golf course firms up, you're going to see a lot of balls gathering down. That bunker right there in the photo was added or restored to the golf course. It's 380 yards from the tee. We really didn't think it was going to be in play for the tee shot. Looking at some of the scatter shots charts that the USGA already has, 2 balls in it at 380 yards. So These guys, when it gets firm and it's downwind, they can hit the ball all the way down there, but they've got to control the trajectory. They've got to control the way the ball will move across that fairway. Second shot, if you hit the fairway, most of them will go for it. Otherwise, there's all these bunkers in the approach that'll complicate that approach. And you cannot miss your second shot in the rough here because there's no way to hold this green if you're coming out of the rough. Green was expanded forward. We restored a little nook over there on the left-hand side that was part of the original design, it had been lost over time. Obviously, this green falls pretty severely from front to back, and it's got some really lovely little rumbles through it. I always love watching balls land short of this green and just see them feed and slowly work their way down to it. They generally always wind up on the back of it, but it takes a long time to get there. Beautiful design. Something you really don't see anymore is, fall-away holes on golf courses. Number 13 is the quote-unquote short hole on the golf course. We're hopeful that they'll play it a little bit shorter on any given day. On the greens renovation, restoration work, we basically stripped away, maybe left 80% of the grass there and then did the expansion on 20%, try and tie everything in. On the 13th green, we had about 15% of the grass was left on it. This was the most significant restoration of putting surface. As you can see, it's surrounded by bunkers, so the bunkers, the sand that had accumulated around the edges was significant, which really forced a lot of the hole locations further into this green. So now you'll get a lot of hole locations just right over the tops of the bunkers. One of the coolest hole locations on the entire golf course is this back pin, back up there on the right in the shelf. We flattened that area out, and there's this wonderful little roll and rumple that guys, if they hit a bad shot and wind up front right and need to putt to the back, they can feed it off, and I was hitting that putt this morning. It's so much fun to hit. I don't know if they'll figure it out, but it's an amazing green complex and definitely the most significant change on the golf course as it relates to the green complexes. From here, you climb up the hill. We added roughly 15 to 20 yards on 14. You can see that back slope coming off the back of 14T. Before this restoration, it was almost a vertical slope. It kind of was a very odd-looking landform out there, so we wanted to try not only to add yardage to the hole, but to soften the back slope. So when you're looking at it, now you see a grandstand, so it's not as prominent. But in the past, when you're looking across the landscape, seeing that was a bit odd. Short par 4, very tight landing area. In 16, almost all the players just hit iron off the tee to stay back short of those bunkers. We expanded the fairway beyond this set of bunkers. You can see where those two guys are standing on the left-hand side to try to entice players to push it a little bit further up the hole. Didn't really see anybody trying to drive the green, but we did start to see balls wind up in this area because it's significantly wider than it was before. The green expansion pushed its way back into this neck. Interestingly, for such a short par 4, probably the softest from a contour standpoint green on the golf course, and also one of the largest greens on the golf course. So somewhat counterintuitive to a short par 4, but it works here. A ton of opportunities for different hole locations. That front right side, that bunker lip was dropped dramatically, so now you can tuck pins right up against that bunker. And then also right back there where the guy's rolling, there's a pretty interesting hole location that kind of falls away towards the bunker in that area. As you can see, one of the things we love about these great old golf courses is really short walk to that next tee. So you're just moving over to 15, which, I know 1 and 10 traditionally play as the most difficult. I think this year 7 and 15 might sneak into that conversation. Added 15 to 20 yards to the back of this tee. You can see 507 up the hill, blind tee shot. So you're going to see some players just lay back because the piano key bunkers over here on the left-hand side, those fescue mounds are seriously high, and if your ball gets up in the fescue, you're going to really struggle to even get it out of the bunkers. And then you see the ditches, the serpentine ditches down the right-hand side. The way these two hazards pinch that landing area, I think you're going to see players say discretion is the better part of valor, and I'm just going to hit something shorter. And even if I've got 220 into the green, I'd rather have that shot than just having to pop it out from one of these hazards. Maybe the largest green on the course, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it is. Wide open in front so you can run a ball into it. Longest bunker on the golf course there. So the scale of the features that the phones created match the scale of this landscape. Big landscape, open, brawny golf course, and you see some of these huge features on the course. subtly really difficult green. Looks kind of flat, but there are a lot of really nice undulations in it, so you've got to pay attention to the way you're putting on the green. And you could also have, 90 or 100-foot putt if you wind up short and putting to the back. 16, we added 25 yards to this tee, brought it back. Hole can play up to about 250 now into that area. There was a bunker in 2016, short right. That's been removed. This version of the golf hole, as the phones had it, just a really sharp grass bank there, which, for the average golfer, when they mow the rough at 2 1/4 inches, is a much easier shot. For a tour player, that's a much more difficult situation to be in instead of being in a greenside bunker. When we talk about scale and slope and difficulty, look at this bunker that stretches all along the left-hand side. It is definitely a trench. It's very narrow. You get in there, it's really deep, and it's going to be a difficult up and down from down in that bunker. Another false front to the green. If your ball doesn't get up in there, the first 40 feet of it, it's coming back at you. But this also, there's a kicker slope there in the front left that if you play a lower trajectory shot, your ball will actually run and feed its way around to the right-hand side of the green. So with the short 17th coming up, very, very difficult 15th. You can't lose track of this hole because it'll come out and bite you in the way it's set up. I love the fact that there's this really, really difficult golf course, and then the penultimate hole has got a short par 4 where there's a chance to score, but it's not an easy short par 4. Tee is well below the surface of the fairway, well below the green, so you're down below looking up at this green, perched up on top. As part of the driving range expansion, we removed all the trees behind this green, so now it is literally a skyline green sitting up there. We simplified the bunker complex. In 2016, I think there were 6 bunkers in the complex over there. One of the iterations the phones had were just these 2 large bunkers. The one close to the green has got probably one of the steepest faces on it. We brought the fescue in from the left-hand side in order, players were using that as their bailout in 2016 and 07, just hitting it over there in the rough and chipping up the length of the green. Now you've got to think about the fescue. Big mouth bunker there, front right, justifiably famous. It's difficult, it's deep, you don't want to be in there. You can start getting back and forth across the green with these bunkers that are set in there. Simple looking green, but hard green to putt. Sometimes when you're on greens and you've got all these wonderful undulations and you're constantly seeing slope, when you get on the greens that have got just the tiniest undulations, your mind can't help but think there's more going on than there actually is. So I think you're going to see guys miss little niggly putts on this green in order, just because they're reading a little bit more into it. 18, we extended the tee back another 30 yards, pushed it in, 502. I've heard this hole referred to as the quintessential closing golf hole in American Championship golf, and I totally agree. I mean, you look at that view, you look at the clubhouse, you look at the bunker configuration, the ditches. It's like every element of Oakmont merges on this 18th hole. The tee shot is so demanding. I mean, when DJ hit that shot in 16, it was one of the greatest shots in championship golf. And then to step up there with all the uncertainty and then hit I think it was a 6-iron into that green, I mean, that was some really golfing. And that's what this golf hole requires. It requires you to hit nothing less than 2 exceptional golf shots. That cross bunker, people think, well, what's that in play for? You get in trouble off the tee, that is in your wheelhouse. You got to think, do I stay short of it? Do I try and get up and over it to get a shorter shot into it? So it really plays a great role into it. Another false front, fairly steep coming back at you. So if balls come up, there's a reason there's netting down there in the short on the right-hand side, because a lot of balls are going to feed back down to where that guy is. I think we all know where the whole location is going to be on Sunday. It's been that traditional spot just above the swale on the back right. I mean, what more could you ask for in a finishing golf hole? And so it has been an amazing honor and privilege. When we were doing this work, I spent most of my time in the pros cottage, spending my nights there. I got to wake up in the morning, walk out of that, and see the sunrise over this golf course. I tell you what, if that doesn't stir your soul as a golfer and as a golf course architect, nothing will.